as well stop texting and calling me, asking me what you doing. Baby, I'm working. I'm always working. If I'm not working, I'm sleeping. Sleeping so I can work. Working so I can sleep, okay? And on a rare occasion, I'm not working or sleeping. I'm minding my business. That's it. That's what I'm doing. Working or sleeping.
I'm Taylor, a licensed realtor. I'm here to inform you of the steps to secure a beautiful home and such. Follow me inside.
The system has failed us. My sister asked for a restraining order, and the judge denied it.
She filed the paperwork. She stood in front of a judge. She told him exactly what was happening inside her home. The broken door, the blocked driveway, the car aimed at her body. The judge heard every word. And then he said no. This is Silent Outcome. Before we get started, leave a like, drop your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe so you don't miss out on more cases like this.
You're looking at copies of the order of protection requested by 29-year-old Taylor McFaden Robinson, filed against her husband, Duncan Robinson Jr. Police say Robinson killed his wife of 7 years Sunday morning at her home in Florence. Her family is just devastated.
To say that her life was cut short in this matter, something I can never get over, my family.
Taylor McFaden Robinson was 29 years old, and she was not waiting for her life to begin. It was already in motion. She was raising 2 boys in Florence, South Carolina, building a real estate business from the ground up, and doing both at the same time, without slowing down for either. Before she opened Taylor Robinson Real Estate, she had been cutting her teeth at United Real Estate since 2016, learning the market, learning the clients, learning how to carry a family's biggest financial decision on her shoulders and deliver. People who worked with her described her as a rising star. Her sister Renee said it more simply. She said Taylor started from the bottom and worked her way up, that she put the business on her back, that it was never about the money for her, that she took families in as her own. Her boys were at the center of everything. Anyone who followed her on social media already knew that. Her sister said, "You opened Taylor's page, and that was all you saw her and her boys. Every post, every photo, every caption. 2 little kids who were her entire reason for building anything at all." Florence knew her, not as a name on a sign or a face on a listing, as a presence, as someone who showed up and stayed and made the people around her feel like their future mattered. She was a daughter, a mother, an entrepreneur, and a woman who had decided that the life she wanted was worth the work it would take to build it. She was already building it. She had already built more than most people twice her age, and she was not finished. She had plans still unfolding, a business still growing, 2 boys still needing everything she had to give. Taylor McFaden Robinson was not standing still. She was moving forward. And the people who loved her had every reason to believe that nothing was going to stop her. Taylor and Duncan Robinson had built a life together in Florence. They were married. They shared 2 sons. On the surface, it looked like what it was supposed to look like: a young family, a home, a future taking shape. But somewhere underneath that surface, something had started to shift. And by the time it became impossible to ignore, Taylor was no longer trying to save the marriage. She was trying to get out of it.
O sole, o sole mio, stai in fronte a te, stai in fronte a te. Like this. Nothing was thrown at me this time.
The relationship had deteriorated. That is the clean word for what happens when a home stops feeling safe and starts feeling like something you need to escape. Taylor had moved into her own space on Rice Planters Lane. She was separated from Duncan, raising her boys, running her business, and moving her life in a direction that no longer included him. A final divorce hearing had already been scheduled. The legal machinery was in motion. She was weeks away from it being official. But Duncan was not adjusting to that reality the way a person is supposed to adjust to it. He came to her home demanding the children. He followed her after she told him repeatedly to leave. He blocked her car in the driveway. He entered her home without permission. On one occasion, he broke the back door, kicked it in, repeatedly trying to force his way inside. On another, he tried to fight a contractor working on her property. And then there was the moment Taylor described in her own words when she filed for the protection order, the moment she wrote down that Duncan had tried to run her over with his car.
I pored over the thick file of records in family court where I found Taylor's order of protection that she filed for last March. An emergency hearing took place within 24 hours. The order details what Taylor says led her to ask for protection against her husband. A paragraph in the order says, quote, "On this day, March 23rd, 2021, Duncan came over to my home demanding the kids. He followed me after repeatedly being told to leave the premises. I called the police on March 21st. Duncan came to drop the kids off. He blocked my car in and entered my home without permission. On March 12th, Duncan broke my back door after kicking in repeatedly to attempt to enter my home. She said on March 9th, he tried to fight the contractor on her property, and on March 15th, tried to run her over with his car." The judge wrote in its notes that, quote, "Parties were advised to get attorneys and file divorce action. Differences appear to be over children. Those who work within the court system say you have to prove to a judge that you're in fear of your life to be granted an order of protection."
These were not arguments. They were not the messy collateral damage of a painful divorce playing out between two people who still cared about each other. These were specific, calculated acts of a man who had decided that Taylor's boundaries did not apply to him, that her home was still accessible to him, that her decision to leave was something he could override by showing up and making it impossible for her to feel safe inside her own life. Taylor saw it clearly. She documented it. She wrote it down in her own hand and carried it into a courthouse and stood before a judge and asked the one institution that had the power to put legal distance between her and the danger she was living inside to please do exactly that. She was not panicking. She was not overreacting. She was a woman who had been watching the situation escalate and had made the deliberate decision to use every legal tool available to protect herself and her children before something worse happened. The question was whether the system she was walking into would see what she already knew. On the 24th of March 2021, Taylor McFaden Robinson stood inside the Florence County Judicial Center and made her case. She had filed the petition days earlier. She had written down everything: the broken door, the blocked driveway, the contractor confrontation, the car. She had given the court a documented record of a man who had already crossed the threshold of her home without permission multiple times and had already put her body in physical danger at least once. She had done everything a person is supposed to do when they need the law to step between them and someone who has stopped respecting the line between his life and hers. Florence County Family Court Judge Timothy Pogue heard it all. Duncan sat across from her and told the judge that a lot of what Taylor was saying was not true. That was his response to a woman who had written down specific dates, specific acts, and specific moments of fear with enough detail that the pattern was visible to anyone willing to look at it directly. Judge Pogue looked at both of them, and then he spoke. He told them the marriage was evidently over. He told them that was what lawyers were for. He said it appeared to the court that their differences were about fighting over the children. And then he told Duncan directly, out loud, on the record, to leave her alone. He said it. He saw enough to say it out loud. And then he denied the order. The official reason entered into the court record was 5 words: failure to prove facts of alleged abuse. His written notes reduced everything Taylor had documented to a single conclusion: that the parties should get attorneys and file for divorce, and that their differences appeared to be over the children. Now, step back from that courtroom for a moment, because what the court was looking at was not a collection of isolated incidents that could be reasonably explained away. It was a pattern. And patterns, when you know what you are looking at, have a shape. They build in tiers, each one heavier than the one before it. The first tier was the kind of behavior that could still be explained away by someone willing to explain it away. Duncan demanded to see the children at her home, not through the proper legal channels that exist precisely for separated parents, but by showing up. He followed her. He refused to leave when she told him to. These were things a person could still frame as the messy desperation of a man struggling with a crumbling marriage. Painful, uncomfortable, but explainable. A lawyer might call it emotional. A judge might call it a custody dispute. Taylor called it what it was, a man who had decided her boundaries were optional. The second tier removed every reasonable explanation. He blocked her car in the driveway. Not once. Repeatedly. He entered her home without permission. He broke her back door, kicked it in with enough force and enough repetition that the damage was undeniable. He confronted a contractor working on her property and tried to fight him. These were not the acts of a grieving husband. They were the acts of a man systematically dismantling her ability to feel safe inside her own space. Every incident moved her one step further from the exit she was trying to reach, and one step deeper into the understanding that this was not going to resolve itself, that she needed outside intervention, that she needed the law. And then there was the third tier, the moment that removed every remaining question about where this was heading. Taylor wrote it down herself. She put it in her own words inside a legal document and signed her name to it. Duncan Robinson had tried to run her over with his car. That was not a blocked driveway. That was not a broken door. That was a weapon. A vehicle aimed at the body of the woman who had decided to leave him. That was the tier where the pattern stopped being about control and became something else entirely. Something with a destination. The court looked at all three tiers and saw a custody dispute. Taylor McFaden Robinson had walked into that courtroom with documented evidence of a man who had broken her door, blocked her escape, and aimed a vehicle at her. She walked out without protection. The judge who told Duncan Robinson to leave her alone did not give her a single legal mechanism to enforce that instruction. What the prosecution would later establish after January 23rd had already made the question academic was that Duncan Robinson did not arrive at Taylor's home that morning out of desperation or grief or emotional collapse. He arrived armed. He forced his way inside. He did it 15 days before a divorce hearing that would have severed the legal tie between them permanently. The timing was not coincidental. The prosecutor framed it plainly as premeditated. A man who saw the door closing and made a decision before it could. The court that denied Taylor's protection order never saw that version of Duncan Robinson, but the evidence suggests he was always there, moving through the tiers, building towards something. And the system that had one clear documented opportunity to interrupt that trajectory looked at everything Taylor had handed it and decided it was not enough. She continued building her business. She continued raising her boys. She continued moving toward the divorce hearing that was already on the calendar. She did everything right. She stayed visible, stayed legal, stayed documented, and kept pushing forward. The system had seen her. It had heard her. It had looked directly at what she was describing and decided it did not rise to the level of intervention. She was on her own. By January of 2022, Taylor McFaden Robinson was 15 days away from the life she had been legally dismantling the marriage to reach. The final divorce hearing was scheduled for February 7th. It was on the calendar. It was real. Everything she had been working towards since the separation, the legal distance, the clean break, the future that belonged entirely to her and her boys was 15 days from becoming official and permanent and done. She had survived the denial. She had kept moving. She had kept her business running and her children cared for and her documentation intact, and her eyes forward. Whatever fear she was carrying it without stopping. The hearing was coming. The end of the legal tie to Duncan Robinson was almost within reach, and Duncan Robinson knew it. On the morning of the 23rd of January, 2022, Taylor's home surveillance system was running. It recorded what arrived at her door that morning before anyone inside the house could stop it. Duncan Robinson had not knocked. He had not called. He had not arrived the way a person arrives when they believe they have a right to be somewhere. He had broken in. The surveillance footage caught him doing it, a man forcing his way into the home of a woman who had spent the better part of a year trying to establish in a court of law that he should not be allowed inside it. What happened next unfolded in front of their 2 sons. Florence police responded to the neighborhood shortly before 10 in the morning after reports of a shooting. They found Taylor McFaden Robinson inside the home. Florence County Coroner Keith Von Lutkin later confirmed what the responding officers already knew. Taylor had been shot. Her death was ruled a homicide. She was 29 years old. Her divorce hearing was 15 days away. Duncan Allen Robinson Jr. was arrested and charged with murder, first-degree burglary, and possession of a weapon during the commission of a violent crime. He had broken into the home of a woman the court had already declined to protect, and he had killed her inside it. The surveillance camera had recorded him arriving. The evidence was already waiting before the investigation had even begun. Florence had lost someone it could not replace, and 2 little boys had just lost the person their entire world was built around. If you have been following Silent Outcome for any time at all, you already know that the evidence rarely stops at the arrest. What the prosecutor revealed in court about what that surveillance footage captured and what it proved about exactly how Duncan Robinson entered that home changes how you understand everything that came before it. Duncan Allen Robinson Jr. had been sitting in the Florence County Detention Center since the morning of January 23rd. Bond had been requested. Bond had been denied, repeatedly. The court that had once declined to protect Taylor McFaden Robinson from the man she feared was now keeping that same man behind bars because the facts of what he had done were too violent to argue around. The case moved toward trial. Jury selection began at the Florence County Judicial Center in November of 2024, and then something shifted inside the courtroom before the first witness ever took the stand. Duncan Robinson addressed the judge. He had questions about pleading guilty. He went back and forth, and then he did it. He entered a guilty plea before a single piece of evidence was presented to a jury. His defense attorneys framed the decision carefully. They said it meant his children would not have to testify against their father. That was the reason they gave. That was the version of events they offered to the court and to the public, that this was an act of consideration for 2 boys who had already lost enough. What the prosecutor had already told the court told a different story about why a trial may not have gone well for Duncan Robinson. 12th Circuit Assistant Solicitor Todd Tucker had described the crime as heinous. He had told the judge that Robinson had been caught on Taylor's own home surveillance system breaking into her house. The footage existed. It was clear. It showed exactly what he had done and exactly how he had done it. There was no version of a trial in which that evidence did not play for a jury. Judge Stephen DeBerry sentenced Duncan Allen Robinson Jr. to 2 life sentences, 1 for murder, 1 for first-degree burglary, plus 5 years for possession of a weapon during a violent crime. The sentences would run separately. He would not be leaving. Taylor's family was in that courtroom. They had waited nearly 3 years for that moment. 3 years of bond hearings and delays and a legal process that moves at its own pace, regardless of the grief sitting in the gallery waiting for it to finish. They got the verdict. They got the life sentences. They got the moment the system finally responded with the full weight it had once withheld. But accountability delivered after the fact is a different thing entirely from protection offered before the danger became permanent. Duncan Robinson was never going to walk free again. Taylor McFaden Robinson was never going to walk into that February divorce hearing. Both of those things were equally and permanently true. Florence grieved her the way a community grieves someone it genuinely cannot imagine being without.
Dozens of people across the county came together to remember someone that tried to make a positive impact in her community, each of them holding a candle, representing the light she brought to those around her.
I definitely find comfort in knowing that she was loved and so many people were impacted by her. I would like for everyone to remember her just as she was. She was always sweet, always had that big, beautiful smile on her face, and always had a giving heart.
Her sister Renee was there, the woman who had watched Taylor put the business on her back, raise her boys alone, and keep moving forward through everything. She was now carrying a grief that had no forward to move toward. Taylor's absence was the shape the future had taken. State Representative Cesar McKnight filed legislation in direct response to what happened to her. He said it plainly: Taylor McFaden Robinson should still be with us. His bill would give magistrates the power to issue temporary emergency orders of protection, closing the exact gap that had left Taylor legally exposed after the denial. He named her. He put her name on the reason the law needed to change. That was the kind of mark she left, not just on the people who loved her, but on the legal architecture of the state she lived in. Her boys were still growing. Her business was still there with her name on it. The February hearing that was supposed to close one chapter and open another never happened. The future she had spent a year carefully and deliberately building in courtrooms, in documented fear. In every step she took toward a life that was fully and safely her own arrived without her in it. Taylor McFaden Robinson was born on the 21st of September 1992 in Florence, South Carolina. She was 29 years old when she was killed. She had spent the last year of her life doing everything right. She filed, she documented, she showed up, she waited. She kept moving forward even when the protection she asked for was denied. If this case stayed with you the way it has stayed with us here at Silent Outcome, let us know in the comments what you think should have happened differently the moment she walked into that courtroom. The next investigation is already underway. Another case, another woman, another warning the system failed to hear. The divorce hearing was 15 days away. Her boys needed her for a lifetime. That distance between 15 days and a lifetime is where Taylor McFaden Robinson's story lives, and it does not close.
The love and support has just been overwhelming, and we definitely thank the community.
Tonight, the community coming together again as they remember someone who has touched the lives of many. We've been telling you about the death of Taylor McFaden Robinson, the popular realtor who was found dead in her home on January 23rd. While her husband, Duncan Robinson Jr., has been charged in connection with her murder. And in addition to murder, he has also been charged with burglary and possession of a weapon during the commission of a violent crime. Tonight, people came together to light up the sky to remember McFaden Robinson. ABC 15's Carlos Flores was there. He joins us live in our Florence studio tonight. And Carlos, I understand you also had the chance to speak with her family.
That's right, Jennifer. Tonight was a time to heal, to love, and to remember. And while Taylor McFaden Robinson is no longer with us, her family says her memory will live on forever.
I knew that my sister touched many lives, but I had no idea the turnout would be like this.
Neighbors April Kennedy and Audrey Park say after the death of 29-year-old Taylor McFaden Robinson, they felt it was important that this tragedy doesn't define her legacy or their community.
You know, the prayers can't just start now, they got to continue. And that's what we're hoping to do.
After seeing a fellow neighbor place a cross in front of McFaden Robinson's home, they decided to host a candlelight vigil to honor the young realtor's memory and begin the healing process.
So coming together as a neighborhood, it can make us better neighbors. It can teach us how to better love our children, how to hug on them just a little bit tighter, how to love our family, our friends. And so I'm hoping that we can all take this from this unfortunate situation.
Dozens of people across the county came together to remember someone that tried to make a positive impact in their community, each of them holding a candle, representing the light she brought to those around her.
I definitely find comfort in knowing that she was loved and so many people were impacted by her. I would like for everyone to remember her just as she was. She was always sweet, always had that big, beautiful smile on her face, and always had a giving heart.
McFaden thanked everyone who showed up today for their support and hoped people use tonight as a reminder to love one another. Jennifer, back to you.
Thank you so much, Carlos. The wake of McFaden Robinson's death, we've also been learning more about an order of protection that she requested before her death. Now, according to court documents, McFaden Robinson claimed that her husband kicked in her door one day. Another time, she accused him of trying to run her over with his car. The judge denied the order of protection, saying in his ruling, quote, parties were advised to get attorneys and file divorce action, saying McFaden Robinson had not proved the physical threats. Records show a final divorce hearing was scheduled for a week from today. And we want to remind you, if you or someone you know is a victim of domestic violence and you need help, there are resources. In the PD, you can contact the PD Coalition Against Domestic and Sexual Assault. The number is on your screen. There's also a number there for those who live in Horry or Georgetown counties. You can reach out to the Family Justice Center. And we also have the National Domestic Violence Hotline. Anyone, anytime, anywhere can call this 1-800 number. It's 1-800-799-SAFE. And you can learn much more about staying safe and about this story. Just look for it at WPDE.com.